You're a Bolton bro, right?
Yeah, I believe in peace through strength.
So
good rebranding.
So you're voting for Trump, right?
I abstain from voting because I'm a journalist and have some shallow hiccups over that. Do you like that? Because, hey, if I'm Brian Whitaker, I can't say, hey, I ever voted. If you're a journalist, you could, yeah, take that.
Okay, cool.
Isn't it a
We're
nice
all
cop-out?
Okay, but I can respect that, and I actually several years ago when I was doing field reporting and interviews, I felt the exact same way. But my position is, I would vote for Donald Trump for his track record on peace. Far from perfect, but the best I've ever seen. Now I'm just like, I've never been more excited for a presidential administration. Because Tulsi Gabbard represented my values largely when it came to foreign policy more than Trump. Trump had Bolton. I did not like it. You are correct.
But it was peace. It resulted in peace.
No, he got rid of Bolton. Bolton stabbed him in the back, and he said that was a mistake. Okay? Tulsi Gabbard was who I wanted to get, and when I wanted to be president, I supported her. I'm like, She had gun policies I wasn't a complete fan of, but there's a few things that I think she could turn around on. And I think she's proven absolutely with her track record as of the past 4 years that I am correct that she is a good candidate in what we are looking to achieve. With RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard joining Trump, I feel that disaffected liberals and post-liberals now have an easy path towards why Donald Trump is the right vote, because it's not about Trump. It's about an administration we've been hoping for our entire lives.
Tulsi Gabbard has said that she doesn't believe we should defend Taiwan in case of a Chinese attack. If she was ever brought up into any position that mattered relative to the military.
Stop. I already like her.
That would be so weak, and that would just be the perfect letter to Xi. Dear Xi, we will not come to Taiwan's defense. Please go invade them. I couldn't think of a better thing for Xi Jinping to want to say. A clearer message to them that, hey, Xi Jinping, the South China Sea is all yours.
Right,
Tulsi Gabbard, am weak and limp-wristed. I will not challenge your authority at all in the South China Sea. And guess what? Persians, Iranians, do whatever you want in the Middle East. That's all yours. Her message to Russia is, hey, I don't want to fund or support Ukraine at all. You could take more than the Donbass. You could take, make your way to Kyiv. I don't want to get involved, is her position.
I already told you I like Tulsi Gabbard. You're not going to sell me anymore.
I think it's just opposite to what we've been seeing from Trump in his first term. And that's the thing about Trump. You could project onto him what you want from him.
No, but listen. And I think you're taking a harsher stance on what Tulsi Gabbard is saying and what she means and how the resolution with Ukraine and Taiwan would come about. The resolution with Ukraine is not fund more war. That Trump said it best. I want the killing to stop. I see Trump's resolution with his conflict of going to Russia and saying, you're stopping or we're starting. And I'm going to tell Ukraine to shut up, and we're going to figure out how we get this resolved. What does Russia want? They need land access to their industrial and naval port in Sevastopol.
Yeah, but while Trump is you're stopping or we're starting, I think Tulsi Gabbard is you're stopping or we're also definitely stopping. So
I don't think so.
Oh, definitely. I don't think Tulsi Gabbard, even if Putin doesn't want...
Have you heard her talk about the Middle East?
I got to question Tulsi Gabbard when she ran for president. I went up to her in New Hampshire and asked her about the Taiwan thing specifically. And she said, no, we have no reason to be involved with defending Taiwan. And I think that's a tough...
What are our interests in defending Taiwan?
It's a very important and good conversation to go have. It'll take a long time to talk about it. But if you wanted to delve in, I'm down to. We have allies in the area, South Korea, Japan, the Philippines. Also, something like 40% of world trade transit the South China Sea. Taiwan is a leader in microchips that are essential for any first world economy.
No, they should be made here in America.
They should be, but they won't be able to be made for at least the next decade. This so-called silicon shield that Taiwan's developed over the past 20-some-odd years.
I'm sorry. It is absurd to me that the United States has invested so much in the defense of Taiwan. I do not like the Chinese Communist Party. I do not like the Chinese Communist Revolution. I don't like the Culture Revolution. I don't like what largely they've done. I wish the government of Taiwan, the true Republic of China, was still in control of the mainland and weren't forced onto that island. But it is a tiny island with limited industry. We should be building those resources here. We should be securing our borders, getting better trade agreements, and working for the American people. I do think I would not go as far as Tulsi in saying we outright abandon Taiwan, but the answers need to be, and it's a mix. I think we need peace through strength. That's why I liked, to a certain degree, when Trump said that Xi and Putin thought he was going to nuke Beijing and Moscow. if they invaded. And he was like, I don't know if they really believed me, maybe 5%, but it was enough. And I'm like, I don't want to see anybody get nuked, but I like that they feared Donald Trump. Hopefully we don't have to go to war, and it'll never be an issue because Trump is, quote unquote, the madman. And she is going to be like, well, as long as Donald Trump is president, we're not making any moves because this guy, who knows what he's going to do? He's going to bomb something.
I do not want to surrender Taiwan and our other democratic allies to the communists. I'm anti whatever supports that. So
I'm anti whatever.
Whatever, if you want to see...
are we going to fight a war with China?
You're old enough. We've fought wars with China.
Yeah, and that was
Korean
we
War
fought. Yeah, Heartbreak Ridge, and we went to a stalemate, and we're still. Well, it's like this. We have these like fossilized foreign policy like positions that come out of the post World War II order that I just don't think shouldn't have any real traction now, but are just getting like, okay, you're going to stop China from what they're doing in the South China Sea right now? Nobody's stopping them. They're doing it under the Biden administration. They did it under the Trump administration. They're just taking their space. And we're going to get into a massive war with a country of a couple billion people with incredibly sophisticated weapons, a world nuclear power, over some island because in 47, Chiang Kai-shek had to split there, and we're all anti-communists and we hate the communists, so we're going to go kill hundreds of thousands of Americans over this island because we can't produce semiconductors in the United States anymore because it all got offshored in the frickin' 90s. No way, man. Like, put your own son up for that crap, man. Like, the same thing I feel like with what's going on in the Middle East. Why are we fighting these wars? Why are we spending all this money when we can't even balance our budget? We're spending most of our tax money just paying the interest on our debt. If I ran my house the way that the freaking government is running things, I'd be bankrupt. We can't afford this. Like, we got to get off this like macho, we're the global cop, right? And like this notion of China is from like 1940. I'm sorry, they're a freaking superpower, man. Like, I don't want to fight the Han Chinese. That's crazy.
I guess my response would be the reason why peace exists now and will continue to exist in that region is because we are strong there. And the second we started getting weak and that Xi Jinping thought he will be militaristically able to conquer Taiwan, he would. As soon as he sees them be weak enough. As soon as Putin saw Ukraine weak enough, he thought it's his opportunity to attack.
And you feel like we became weak under the Biden administration, or did it happen before that?
Whatever the threshold happens. So it's different for each conflict. So for Taiwan,
Asia,
it hasn't happened yet because we still stand firmly with Taiwan.
But,
the threshold was reached in Ukraine, obviously.
China has obviously made different moves throughout that region where people feel like they are sort of amping up their military prowess and aggression. So is that them saying the Biden administration is weak? Did this start happening before? I mean, it hasn't. The scale hasn't tipped
It's
yet,
a philosophical thing.
Right
when
now?
Xi Jinping believes he is militaristically capable of taking Taiwan, that's when he will. So
I just want to say something real quick to the audience, those that are listening. We have currently about 50,000 concurrent viewers watching. And I just want to say you guys rock, and I deeply respect all of you. I sincerely mean this because it warms my heart that we are having this ridiculously esoteric geopolitical conversation about war and conflict that I think is some of the most important stuff in the world. It matters more to me than almost anything else. And there's so many people that are deeply interested in hearing it. I genuinely, I'm just in awe that people are here for this conversation. It's just really, really awesome, guys. So, Elaad, anyway, you're wrong. And yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I hope for peace, and the way to achieve it is through strength. And that's why I thought there was peace during the Trump administration. And by the way, it's not that America wasn't involved in any new wars. It's that conflicts that were occurring were cooling down. Fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan, where America is very tangentially related, isn't flaming up during the Trump administration. The Philippines isn't getting harassed by China as much during a Trump administration than they are now under a Joe Biden administration. So it's not only an actual war that, weren't occurring under Trump. It was generally countries were more calm because they were scared of the threats that Trump was making to them because he's the master deal maker.
He's more unpredictable, for sure.
I just say, how about this? I think it all comes down to we're going to argue about who should be doing what, when, or why. But under Donald Trump, it was good in terms of foreign policy. I'll say this every day. when he crossed the DMZ with Kim Jong-un with no security detail, walking over to North Korea and walking back. That was one of the most incredible moments I have ever seen. I'm talking to the libertarians at their convention, and, they're ragging on Trump all the time. And I said, but he, with Kim Jong-un, crossed the DMZ, and they're, okay, fair. That was really good. I mean, he had no security. They could have just taken him and said, we got a hostage in the president. What are you going to do about it? They're not going to. And so Trump, with great personal risk, tries to bring peace. And I think the reason is Trump's got an ego. I think Trump is a good person. I think if you know him, if you know the people around him, you'll hear nothing but praise for the man. He's got his attitude, he's got his mean tweets, and nobody's perfect. But I think a combination of Trump wants to be loved and Trump wants to drive him towards these peace efforts. What is he thinking? Most people want peace. Nobody wants war. Now, the military-industrial complex, the liberal economic order, they want war because it is a mechanism by which they can control regions and, basically expand their influence with the petrodollar, IMF, World Bank, et cetera, et cetera.
It's good for business.
Absolutely. Donald Trump says, no. People want something else. The machine state says, we don't care what they want. We want control and to maintain exactly what we're building. Trump's motivation is then peace everywhere. Now, there is a fear, in my opinion, that I wouldn't call Trump an isolationist. You were saying he was more of that thought. Because he does believe that we should, to an extent, we are with NATO. They just got to pay their fair share, right? NATO should be paying the bills. So Trump is not completely just seal up America and walk away from everything. However, I do fear, and I think you're correct on this to a certain degree, Elaad, the Chinese Communist Party, the Belt and Road Initiative, the expansion they're doing in Africa and South America is to position themselves as the superpower. And then, heaven forbid, we, as freedom-loving people, have to live under a unipolar Chinese communist boot. That is worrisome to me. I don't believe the Bolton method is the path towards stopping that. I actually think the Trump method is the path towards stopping that. That's why I like Donald Trump. Again, we had problems with spending. The deficit went through the roof. He's far from perfect. We had drone strikes increasing. There's criticisms and questions about why, and transparency on that was removed. But the end result of what we saw was some of the best stuff I've seen in my life.
And just to piggyback on that, Trump did eventually get some NATO countries to increase where their target spending was supposed to be. Each NATO country is supposed to have like a certain percent of GDP going towards their military. Many of them were slacking. Trump famously was threatening a lot of these countries that he'd pull out if they didn't pull their fair share. And then there's this also very famous picture of Trump, which I believe is at one of these NATO conferences, where he's sitting at a table, and then you have Angela Merkel kind of standing above him with her hands on the table. And then you have the Japanese prime minister standing by him, and then also famously John Bolton also nearby. Donald Trump also got the Japanese to start to change their constitution to allow their military to be more foreign and not just domestic. Some esoteric thing in the Japanese constitution that allowed them to beef up their military, which is very important. So again, peace through strength is how I believe we got there, and I think that's how Trump is going to be able to maintain that when, God willing, he gets back into office.
Well, didn't we wrote the Japanese Constitution after World War II, and I think we had some pacifist clauses.
We wrote it purposefully pacifistic, but now we want them to be a little bit more hawkish towards our common enemy in the communist Chinese.
What could go wrong?
Look, I think the harsh reality is, especially as you get older, there's no end. The activists, they say the ends justify the means, but that's not true because you never meet the end. And so right now we say, here's what we want to have happened. Here's what we want to happen. Here's what we hope will happen. We wish there was no war. We wish October 7th never happened. Now we're in it. We're facing war. What do we want to accomplish? An end to that war so that we hope in the future we can live in peace. I'm sorry. I think that's impossible. And I'm not trying to be black-pilled or negative. I just think the state of life is a flux of various ideologies, and this is the nature of human social development, evolution, and literal evolution. You have warring factions and ideologies deciding what should or should not be competing for resources. Water wars at first, but now you have China saying, we want to grow. Our people want to have families. They want to build new houses. We need resources for that. We're going to go find them. There's not going to be a point where we accomplish a goal and then everything stops. And then it's like the year 2173, and they were like, wow, in the year 2082, it's when all war was done and peace was just permanent forever and everyone got along. No, that's impossible. Because you will always get, no matter what you do, some kind of fight that spirals out between people who cannot agree on their worldviews. Again, not trying to be negative, but I think that even if we accomplish everything we want to accomplish, the fight will never stop. There will always be the risk of great war and threats of violence, whatever it may be. And that's why they say the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. We can elect Donald Trump now. We can strive for these things. But China will always be pushing back. And if not China, another country emerges, another power emerges. We're always going to be staring down the barrel of great conflict. Maybe we colonize Mars with Elon Musk, and 1,000 years from now, Earth is unified, but now we're at war with Mars or something. Who knows?
But why do we need a standing army when we have nuclear weapons? Why do we have
Because nuclear weapons can't occupy street corners.
That's true.
So you can turn them to glass. And the question of war is, what is the purpose of war? There's several different purposes. One is someone is attacking you and you need them to stop, in which case a nuclear weapon serves that purpose greatly. If Ukraine had a nuke, I think they might fire it at Russia. I don't know. Russia's too big. Russia might retaliate.
Well, they gave up their nuclear weapons and then Russia invaded, right? Like they gave up their...
Right.
Yeah.
But how's Russia going to invade Ukraine with nukes? It's hard to, once you just nuke a country to...
Well, it depends on what they want. If Russia wants land access to Crimea, where they have their military base and industrial center in Sevastopol, nukes are just fine. They could flatten every major Ukrainian city overnight with intercontinental ballistic missiles, and then there's no opposition whatsoever, and they walk on in. They can't, however, because there's opposition. The West, NATO, won't allow that, so they can't escalate to that point. War is basically, in many instances, resource conflict. So Russia, of course, needs access to Crimea, Sevastopol. They took it because NATO and the EU were pressing into Ukraine and winning favor with Ukraine, their government, their structures. And this is largely due to energy, Gazprom, et cetera, and Europe wanting cheaper gas prices where Russia controlled the majority of it. The West wants Russia to fall in line and provide them cheaper energy so their economy can expand. And we can overwhelm China effectively economically. At least that's what they claim. So the end result is basically this. Someone amasses power somehow. They want to keep amassing power. Someone will oppose their amassing of power, and you end up with Thucydides' trap. When a rising economic power is on the verge of displacing the dominant power, there's a tendency to lead to great war. I don't see any outcome in any of our endeavors that results in world peace in the future. Again, it sounds very negative, but what I mean to say is there's always going to be conflict in some fashion or another. Maybe we can get to the point where you have an international court system that handles things, but that would only be possible with a monopoly on violence, some entity that has a monopoly on violence. So if the liberal economic order succeeds and subjugates the rest of the planet, then you've just got the totalitarian state of jackboot UN troops coming down and kicking your door in and saying your meme's illegal, which then results in conflict. People rise up, dissent, then you get conflict in regions, be it terror, insurgency, whatever.
That's the FBI that kicks in your door and says your meme's illegal. But
that's true. But I mean, I'm saying in the future, when the global tyranny expands and you get these massive international blocks, it's going to be UN troops or something.
Tim, to follow up on what is war, there's a Prussian military theorist, Karl von Clausewitz, who said war is politics by any means. And I think that's a really apt description in understanding how war plays out between nations.
But what is politics?
Politics is getting other groups of people to do what you want them to.
Exactly. And so right now, there are various ways to go about that. The easiest, of course, is media manipulation. If you went back to the 1500s, great wars in Europe, granted, the armies weren't nearly as big as we see them now, and you went to the king and said, I tell you this, I will get the people of, let's say, England versus France, every single French subject, every single one of them will bow before the king. I don't know my years, so I don't know when they were actually fighting or whatever.
All the time.
All the time. I was like 800 years.
All the time, yeah.
You will raise not one sword, you will fire not one arrow, and they will bow before you. Would you accept those terms? Of course. We want them to surrender. We don't want to have people die. It's a waste of our energy and resources. More men is better for us. How do we conquer them without fighting? Here's Facebook. We're going to give all of them a media machine that tells them what to think and when to think it and exposes them only to what we want them to see. And slowly but surely, over 7 years or so, the only thing they ever see when they're on their little phones going, wow, it's amazing. I got cats. I got dogs. And, ooh, the French king is a bad guy. Oh, and dogs and cats. And, oh, that French king, he's doing bad again. And then you create a generation of people who hate the king. And then the opposing force can just say, I'm here to save you. And they go, yay, because their minds have been changed over a long period of time. Cyber war, multidimensional warfare. This is where we're currently at. But I think you make a good point. War, it takes many forms. And what we're seeing with kinetic conflict is politics by any means. When Russia lost the influence battle trying to basically buy out Ukraine, as the West was trying to buy out Ukraine, they said, okay, we can't win anymore. Send in the tanks. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.